Hi, I'm Tamara and I work for CCUA. And today's Kitchen Side Chat, we are going to be talking all about the wonderful vegetable Swiss chard. So this is actually rainbow chard, and you can tell because of the beautiful colors on the stems. But today we're going to do a little kitchen side chat about Swiss chard, rainbow chard, all the varieties of different Swiss chard. We're going to talk about like the vitamins, the nutrients, what you can do with them, because there's several different ways to cook it, and just all about how cool this vegetable is. So I have to say, I still think last week's little spotlight on kohlrabi was one of my favorites, but I do love Swiss chard, especially rainbow chard. There's just something about how beautiful this is. I mean, it almost looks like a bouquet. Like somebody could give this to their sweetheart and they would just love it. So look at those beautiful colors around the stem. I do want to make a big shout out to my coworker Katie. This is actually from her garden. She had a bunch of leftovers and she asked if I could use some, and I was like, absolutely, I'd love to do a little spotlight on this amazing vegetable. So what we're going to do today is we're going to cook it in a couple of different ways, but we're going to just talk about, like, what is this? If you're not familiar with it, kind of what it is, what kind of family it's within, and like why you want to eat it because of all those delicious nutrients. So, okay, so this is rainbow chard, but we're going to talk about all the varieties of Swiss chard. So Swiss chard it's a colorful leafy green known as Swiss chard, is actually a beet that was developed specifically with edible stems and leaves. So I thought that was super fascinating and I had no idea. The other thing that I thought was super cool is that chard can be eaten either, and any of the varieties can be eaten raw, and it can be eaten cooked in many different ways. So something I wanted to talk about is that I really like about chard is I think it's super flexible, and I think that a lot of people just kind of put it in this box of kind of like a kale or a collard green and only think you just cook it with bacon and that's it. But I'm here to kind of be Swiss chard's little ambassador and tell you all the cool things you can do with it. So, I kind of went through all the things I've done with it, and then I looked online, and then I talked to some of the garden crew, and then I did some digging, and I found out that there's a lot of things you can do with it, including using it as a carb-free wrap, or a tortilla. And then this one I thought of last night, is I thought you could do like a stuffed bell pepper recipe with rice and ground beef and veggies, and instead of using a bell pepper, you could actually take this beautiful big leaf, and you could put your little rice and your, you could even do potatoes, rice, hamburger. You could put that in the middle of it, and you could roll it up, and you could kind of set those together in a pan, and you could totally cook those, and that would be not only beautiful, but nutrient dense, and it would be a lot less carbs than if you were to use like a tortilla or something like that. I mean, bell peppers are still really good, but if you have this in season, if you got it at the central pantry, or you got it at the farmer's market, it would be kind of fun to play with in that way. Eating it raw, you can cook it, you can bake it like a chip. And then I thought what I have done in the past is I've mixed this with kale and collards and kind of done a whole three, like a trio. And I blended that up with a little onions, garlic, celery, carrots, a little bit of vegetable broth, and kind of sauteed that down. So right over here, just so you're wondering, like, what is she doing over there? I am just sauteing garlic, 6 cloves, and half a red onion with a little bit of olive oil, and I'm getting it kind of cooked down. And I'm going to keep talking about why Swiss chard's so awesome, but I'm going to add a little bit more olive oil. And this is going to be the cooking demo for our cooked chard, and then I'll do a cooking demo for our raw. So what I'm going to do here, and then I'll go back to talking about how cool chard is I wanted to, I cut up all the stems for this one, and so this recipe is going to be lemony cooked garlic chard. You can use any variety. You can use the rainbow bright lights, which is what this is. You could use a regular Swiss variety, anything that you want, you could totally use. I cut up all the stems, and look at this, they're so pretty. They're like confetti. I cut all the stems up, and then I sauteed. I'm starting to get to where the garlic and onion are a little bit transparent. That's what you want. So I'm going to bump up the heat a bit. I'm going to take those beautiful stems. I'm going to pop them in. So the stems are going to take longer to cook. They almost have a texture or consistency of a celery. And it actually looks like celery in a way. And it's funny because my husband's allergic to celery, So I just got to thinking, like, instead of using celery, I could totally use this, and it would be kind of a good filler for some of those recipes where I've had to leave celery out. Okay, so I bumped the heat up. I put a little bit more olive oil. So I'm going to saute all those beautiful stems, and it's going to take a little bit. So I'm going to bump the heat up and everything, and then we'll just talk a little bit more about what you can do with chard. Okay, so the one thing I did want to point out is, especially if this is your first time cooking with it, it can be super intimidating, because if you were to eat it just straight up raw and you were to put it in your mouth, it can be a little bit bitter, and I think it can be off-putting. So to me, it's almost like a kale, like a dino kale, or a collard green. And in the fact that if you cook it right, I think it can be absolutely delicious. But I think if it's your first time, just sticking a piece of chard in your mouth can be a little bit jarring. So I'm going to kind of break down the different ways that you can make it today. And so the one thing I wanted to point out is if you are going to eat it raw, I would highly suggest kind of following a little bit. You don't have to make this salad, but following a couple of these tips. And the first one is going to be, the smaller that you cut your leaves, and the tinier pieces, it's going to just be a little bit more tender to eat. And something that I'm going to do, which is a little unorthodox, is I'm going to take these beautiful leaves for our raw salad, and I'm going to massage them with olive oil. And what that's doing is that's going to break down that consistency a little bit, and it's just not going to be, it's going to be more of a tender leaf, more of like a spinach versus like eating like a raw collard or eating a raw, like a raw piece of like dino kale, like that consistency. So, and then acidity. So when I have eaten raw chard, I love all vegetables. But like, let's be real. A lot of people aren't just going to be like, let's eat a bunch of raw chard. It's just, it's more of an abnormal thing. But like the real veggie heads, myself included, are going to be eating this stuff. But if you're trying to do this for your family or a child, or maybe it's just your first time and you're not sure. Like for my husband, when I make something like this for him, or I make kale for him, massaging it and putting some sort of acidity, a lemon juice, is really good because it breaks it down and it gives it more of the consistency that somebody who's not just a total veggie head is going to like. So I'm still sauteing this other half of the recipe. And so I'm going to show you how to massage this, and it is like literally as easy as it sounds. So I'm going to put in all my leaves. So for this recipe, this is more of your raw kale salad, or not kale. See, I love kale too. Your raw chard salad, and it's going to be just a simple chard salad. So I'm going to put all those leaves in there, and then I took the stalks, and they're actually cooking over here. And we're just trying to get those cooked down to where they're a little bit more soft. So that's kind of what we're doing over here. So this is for the second recipe, but I wanted you to really see the whole step so you could get an idea of the process. Okay, so this is for our kale salad. So we're going to get and on the recipe, and I'm going to drop it below after this, I put a few drops of olive oil. You can use whatever. You could use something else, but like literally all I'm doing is I poured a little olive oil on this, and you're going to be a little sticky. This would be a great thing for kids to help with. Just make sure they wash their hands, obviously. You know how kids are. Okay, so you get that olive oil in, and you're literally just massaging it. And I would say you probably can't be too vigorous or too crazy with this. I mean, obviously, if you're like whipping it into shreds, that may be a little too vigorous. But you're really just wanting to massage it around. And what I'm doing is I'm taking like my fingers and I'm rubbing it like this, really trying to get that olive oil through it. It's really just going to break it down. It's making the consistency and the texture just a lot better, and you're still going to get that beautiful flavor. The really cool thing that I just love about chard, that I knew it was super nutritious, and I knew it was super like nutritiously dense, and it was just an amazing vegetable, but I looked up kind of like the stats on it, and the thing I thought was amazing was it has 18 milligrams of calcium per serving, and this is like a real doozy. So you might want to sit down for this. It has 298 milligrams of vitamin K, which is almost twice what your daily value is. And then it had a bunch of other vegetables. Vitamins. It's got vitamin C. It's got potassium, calcium, and it's really low in carbs. It's 1.4 grams per serving. So like you could probably eat this whole entire leaf right here, and you could like wrap it up as a tortilla or something like that. And literally, if you're on keto or something like that, it would probably be less than 3 to 4 grams of carbs. So, okay. So that's literally all it is you just take that olive oil and you massage it. So what's really cool about this, and it's going to be kind of hard to see, but this is the leaf that's already been massaged. It is really, the consistency is just different. It's softer, it's greener, it's not wilted or anything like that. But compared to this, it's just going to be like a more enjoyable thing to eat raw. Okay, so there's that. I'm going to wipe my hands off a little bit. If you're going to have kids help, I think it'd be really great. Again, I make sure you wash your hands, and I would probably just cut it up into more bite-sized or smaller pieces before they start helping you, because I think it would be just a little bit easier to deal with. Okay, so I'm going to go back over here to the second recipe. We're going to hop back and forth. So this one is the lemony garlic chard recipe. So this is looking just beautiful. So it's almost exactly what I want. So if you're just hopping on, I am sauteing 6 cloves of garlic, which is actually more than the recipe calls for. I love good garlic. Let's see, olive oil and onion. It calls for 2 tablespoons, but I used half an onion. You can really, with recipes like this, like do whatever works for your family. If your family loves garlic, great, add more garlic. If your family hates onion, use onion powder, or you don't have to use it at all. Okay, so I wanted to show you, and these are just those stems. If they've really kind of cooked down, and it's a beautiful kind of rainbow color. That's just what we want. Okay, so it's actually a very beautiful dish. It almost looks like confetti. Okay, so we have that, and we're going to move on here. And I've watched all these stems, but I wanted to show you, I wanted to keep them out and full because they're just so beautiful. Okay, so I'm actually going to turn the heat down here for a minute. So this is going to be our lemony garlic kale. So this one's the raw one. We'll talk about that just in a second. But if you are going to prepare chard, you're going to, and I keep calling it kale. I'm being silly. I love kale so much, and I think that's why I keep calling it kale. You're going to just take it right off the stems like so. Super easy. You can cut it with a knife, but in my opinion, I think it's easier just to straight up do this. Okay. Take that off. And then I will keep these. So typically, like if I was doing this for this recipe, I would have already cut these stems up and I would have sauteed them. But since I'm kind of going backwards here, I'm going to keep this for a different recipe I'll use later. Okay, same thing. You're going to just take that, you're going to peel it right down the center. Make sure your hands are clean. Make sure your Swiss chard leaves are clean as well. And then you're going to take the stem, put them to the side. You can compost them. You can pickle them. I actually pickled some of these a while ago that I got from a Happy Hollow subscription that I did, and they were really good. The one thing I will say is because of the heat of the pickling liquid, they lost their color, which was a bummer. Okay, so with these, they're already been washed and everything. I'm going to throw them right in here. I'm going to add a little bit more olive oil. And I'm not measuring on the olive oil. Obviously, you don't want it to be greasy or anything, but as long as you don't pour too much, I think it's good. Okay, so we got our garlic, we got our onion, we got our kale stems, and now we have our kale leaves. So, or not kale, Swiss chard. I am just really on a kale kick. The next video I need to do needs to be on kale, doesn't it? Okay, so this is your Swiss chard. I'm going to keep kind of stemming these right quick and just throwing them in here. So this was 6 stems. You can do more, you can do less. I think it just depends on how much onion and garlic you want to use, depending on how many kale leaves you use. Okay, so I'm going to turn it up just a kick. On the consistency of these, we really want to cook it down kind of like a collard or like a cooked spinach. The nice thing about cooking at home is like you can kind of do, if you want it really, really, really cooked, you can cook and cook and cook. You can even add like a vegetable broth with it. If you like it a little bit more crispy and a little bit more green, you can do it that way. So we're going to cook that a little bit. Okay, so we're going to hop back to our beautiful, fresh chard salad. So we've massaged it, we've cut it. So here's the thing, and this is like a little tip or trick. If you have some of this, especially for somebody who's never eaten it, I highly suggest if you're going to feed it to somebody or yourself or your family, raw, cut it up as small as you possibly can and massage it. Because what it's going to do is it's going to break down, and the consistency, it's just going to be less bitter, and it's just going to be a lot more feasible to eat. I think if you chop it up really finely, it just tastes better too. It just kind of breaks down It still has that nutritional value because you're not hitting it with heat or anything like that, but I just think overall you're going to have a better experience. Okay, so that's all cut up. It's been massaged. So here's the fun part on the salad. So on the lemony garlic kale, we're just going to keep kind of sauteing it. I'm making 2 recipes today, so it's kind of going back and forth a little bit. So that's going to keep cooking. On your salad, so you've got your massaged Swiss chard leaves. And I am going to pin this recipe below, but this is a salad. So we have 1 small Granny Smith diced up, and actually if you watched my video last week, I think kohlrabi would be great in this. I think you could do some kohlrabi, you could do cucumber if you want to go crazy, but I think, so this is the Granny Smith, all diced up. I did a 1/4 cup sunflower seeds. I left out the feta cheese because honestly I forgot to get it at the store, so I don't have any. But feta cheese is optional if you want to add that. I got my scallions in here, and I got raisins. You could do cranberries. And then I have, on the sunflower seeds, I did roast those, so that's kind of yummy. And then you're going to want to do, you have our lemon juice. So that is going to be one tablespoon of lemon juice. And we're going to mix that into the dressing. And actually, I already made the dressing, so this is actually for this recipe. I'm getting ahead of myself. Okay, so you're going to take all of those goodies. So it's the apple, it's the sunflower seeds, it's either the cranberry or the raisins, and the scallions, and you're going to dump them in on top of your kale. And then I'm going to include the recipe as well for the dressing. And then you're going to just basically toss it. You can toss it with a spoon if you don't want to toss it with your hands. And then you're going to drizzle over that dressing. The one thing I will say is I do not like to drizzle dressing over this and let it sit. You can if you really want to break the consistency of these down, but in my opinion, if you do that, it can get a little soggy. So that's it. This is your beautiful salad. It's got your apple in there, your cranberries, your toasted sunflower seeds. If you don't have those things, feel free to sub things out. For sunflower seeds, you could do a different kind of nut. You could leave the nut out altogether. If you don't have feta, you could do Parmesan. Okay. So here is our second recipe. And I will be honest with you, this is one of my favorite recipes to do. I think it's a real crowd pleaser, and it's very beautiful when you serve it. Okay. So it's still really hot, as you can tell. Okay, so this is our lemony garlic chard. And I'll show you, it's going to be hard to see there for a minute. But it's beautiful. Look at the color of the stems. And then we put all those leaves in there and everything. So I'm going to put it on here because it's still pretty hot. I'm going to unplug my little stove top here. Okay. So once you have taken this off the heat, and so I cook it for like 5 to 6 minutes with just the stems, and then another 5 minutes with the leaves. Leaves really don't take that long. If you find them sticking, you're feel free to add some more oil. Okay, so you're going to remove it from heat, and you're going to add your lemon juice. So this is 1 tablespoon of lemon juice. And I probably should have let this cool down just a tad bit more, but that's okay. I don't want to make you all wait. Okay, and then we are going to add our 2 to 4 tablespoons of Parmesan cheese. Sprinkle it around. And if you wanted to serve this, you could add the cheese on at the end if you want it to be like a pretty presentation. And then your salt and pepper. And actually, I'm not going to salt and pepper this. I don't normally do that. But if you're going to do it at home, you can totally salt and pepper it. Salt and pepper to taste. You can add a little bit more cheese. I'm going to put it in here so I can show you how pretty this is. And it really is a crowd pleaser. I think it's a great dish to introduce somebody to a Swiss chard because it just, again, it could be a little intimidating, especially to eat it raw. It's a little bit bitter. The texture is a little bit tough. So that's it. So this is going to be your lemony garlic chard. Just cook it down. You can make it super easy. If you want to add collards in there, you can. If you want to add spinach, if you want to add, that dino kale, you can do that. And then this is your salad. And that's it. The other thing I did want to mention about this that I think is super cool is it has a lot of different nicknames, but the thing that I thought was really cool is they call it silver beet, spinach beet, crab beet, white beet. Like, I thought that was kind of funny. But the thing that I thought was super cool, and I always think this is beautiful, if you go by someone's garden or you go by one of our farms at CCUA and you see our Swiss chard growing, it can grow up to 28 inches tall. That's huge. That's huge. And a couple of these leaves I've had actually were probably about that long. Like, look at this stem compared to my head. It's like, that is a huge leaf. So it's really cool. It's a great vegetable. It's super good for you. It's super nutritionally dense. If you have any recipes that you really like, rainbow chard or Swiss chard or any other varieties with, please drop them below. What I'm going to do is I'm going to drop down the recipes for today, and I am going to drop down a recipe, and it's not affiliated with us at all, but it's just one of my favorite recipes that I found on Pinterest a while ago, and it is a lemony kale soup. But I will tell you, the secret ingredient of all time is to not use the kale in the soup, but to use chard leaves, and it is out of this world. So it is not affiliated with us at all. I don't know the blogger or anything like that, but it's a great recipe, so I'm going to drop it below along with the recipes that we cooked today. So thank you so much for joining us. We really hope that you really are impressed by chard, and the next time you see it at Central Pantry or the farmer's market or the grocery store, you're going to give it a try. So thanks for watching today's Garden Side Chat. Again, my name is Tamara, and I work for CCUA. And just please like, plant, and subscribe. We have a YouTube channel, so if you want to check out any of our past content, we would love to see it. Thanks again, and have a good day.